So have you ever had that feeling, you know the one,
Yeah, yeah.
where you're just completely, utterly stuck?
hmm
I don't just mean like having a bad Tuesday. I mean that deep sinking sense that no matter what you do, the walls just keep closing in.
Right. It's that feeling that the world out there, the economy, your boss, the news, that's what's holding the steering wheel.
And you're just locked in the trunk.
You're just along for the ride, a passenger in your own life.
Exactly. You feel trapped. But what if I told you that that feeling of being trapped is actually a signal?
And that the solution isn't some brand new, complicated idea, but something written, what, over a century ago.
By a woman who is way, way ahead of her time. Today we are looking at Lessons in Truth by Emilie Cady.
It's fascinating because this text really bridges the gap between, what we might call spirituality and modern behavioral
It
science.
really does. And before we get into the ideas, and there are a lot of them, we have to talk about Cady herself because she's such a unique figure.
She is.
Writing in the late 19th century. And she was a homeopathic physician. And that, to me, is a crucial detail.
It's everything. It
Mhm.
really is. Because she had this medical background. She wasn't just approaching problems from a purely mystical place.
She was diagnosing.
She was treating patients, dealing with real physical ailments.
Right.
But she realized that the root cause so often wasn't in the body at all.
It was in the mind.
It was in the mind. She was
Yeah.
basically practicing mind-body medicine before we even had a popular term for it.
So today we're focusing on her very first lesson. And it asks a pretty bold question right out of the gate. The title is Bondage or Liberty? Which?
hmm
And before we dive in, I do have to say, if this episode helps you, please hit like and subscribe for the next one.
Bondage or liberty, which, I mean, it sounds a bit dramatic, doesn't it?
It does, like a line from a revolution or
A
something.
political manifesto.
But she's not talking about physical chains, is she?
No, not at all. She's talking about the human condition. And she starts with this really powerful allegory that I think most people know.
The story of the Israelites in Egypt.
Exactly. Even if you're not religious, you know the story. They're slaves to Pharaoh, forced to make bricks without straw.
Bricks without straw. I mean, that is the perfect metaphor for modern burnout, right?
Perfect. You're expected to produce more and more with fewer resources, less energy.
Mm-hmm.
But Cady says, look deeper. She interprets Egypt not as a place on a map,
But as a
a state of mind. She calls it sense consciousness.
sense consciousness. Okay, that is a bit of jargon. Let's break that down.
Yeah, let's unpack it. It just means living your life reacting entirely to what your five senses tell you.
Yeah.
What you see, hear, touch.
The physical world.
The physical world. It's the belief that your reality is defined solely by those external conditions.
So if the economy is bad,
Then I must be poor. If your
Uh-huh.
boss is in a bad mood, then I must be unhappy. If it's cold outside, I'm going to get sick.
so Egypt is basically the state of being a victim to your environment.
That is the definition of bondage in this text.
You're letting the outside world dictate your inside world.
Exactly. Bondage is the belief that power lives outside of you. It's believing that the taskmasters, your bills, a diagnosis, a tough relationship, have the final say over your life.
And Cady argues that all suffering
Every bit of it.
comes from this one false belief.
That we are in bondage to the flesh or to external things.
Wow. That's a huge statement. All suffering, that feels like a stretch. I mean, if I break my leg, the suffering feels pretty real and physical, not just a belief.
And she's very rigorous about this. She would say, yes, the pain is real. The physical sensation is real. But the suffering, the despair, the hopelessness, that feeling of being trapped by it,
That comes from the story we tell ourselves about the pain.
it comes from the narrative we attach to it. The story that we are helpless, the belief that the external world is the cause, and we are just the effect.
Right. Bondage is a belief, not a location. You could be in a palace and be in total bondage if you think your happiness depends on keeping it.
And you could be in a prison cell and experience total liberty if you understand that your mind, your consciousness,
Yeah.
is free.
So, if this bondage is mental, how do we get so hooked? Because it feels so incredibly real. If I lose my job, my bank account doesn't care about my consciousness.
It feels completely real. And Cady never denies that the experience is painful, but she explains the mechanism of why it hurts.
Okay.
And she uses this great, slightly old-fashioned word for it, the bugaboo.
The bugaboo. I love that. It sounds like something out of a ghost story from the 1890s.
It basically is. She tells this story of a child who is absolutely convinced there's a monster, a bugaboo under the bed. The child is terrified. They might even go into convulsions from fear. Their heart is racing, they're sweating. They're suffering real physical anguish.
But there's no monster.
Exactly. The suffering is 100% real, but the cause is false.
Yeah.
The child is reacting to a belief, not to an actual reality.
Okay, that makes sense.
She gives another example that feels even more modern. Imagine you get a telegram, or today, a text message, that says, a loved one has died in an accident.
Oh, that's the worst feeling imaginable. Your stomach just drops.
You go into shock. You start crying. Your
Yeah.
body goes through the entire physiological stress response. Cortisol floods your system. Your blood pressure spikes.
Yes. Feel it everywhere.
But then, an hour later, you get another message. So sorry, wrong number. It was a mistake.
Wow, so for that whole hour, you went through absolute hell.
But nothing had actually happened in the real world. Your body didn't know the difference.
And this is where she connects right into modern neuroscience.
Absolutely. Our brains are prediction machines. The amygdala, the fear center of the brain, it doesn't distinguish well between a vividly imagined threat and a real one.
So if you believe you're trapped.
Your body releases the same stress hormones as if you were physically tied up.
This reminds me so much of what they talk about in acceptance and commitment therapy, or ACT. They have a term for it, cognitive fusion.
That is the perfect parallel.
Yeah.
Cognitive fusion is when you get so stuck to a thought that you treat it as an absolute fact. You fuse with the thought, I am a failure, and suddenly you're seeing the whole world through failure glasses.
You're not seeing reality anymore. You're seeing your thought about reality.
Yes. And Cady calls this the mentality of the flesh. It's giving your internal agreement, your consent, to the idea that the negative appearance is the ultimate truth.
You're saying yes to the fear.
You're letting the bugaboo run the show.
Okay, so if the problem is that we're agreeing with these false stories, how do we break the agreement? Cady uses a term here that I think trips a lot of people up. She talks about denial. And, in modern psychology, denial is usually seen as a bad thing. It means refusing to face reality.
Right. Like, I don't have a drinking problem when you clearly do.
Yeah.
And we need to be very, very clear here. Cady is not talking about psychological repression or delusion.
She's not saying ignore a broken leg or pretend you don't have debt.
No, that would be completely irresponsible. In the metaphysical sense she's using, to deny means something very specific. It means to declare not to be true.
To declare not to be true.
It's a refusal to give power to the situation. Think of it like a math problem on a chalkboard. If you're doing a complex calculation and you make a mistake on the second line,
The whole rest of the problem's going to be wrong.
right, you're building on an error. Now, to fix it, you don't just write over the mistake.
You have to erase it.
You wipe the slate clean. You erase the error so you can start the calculation again correctly. That is denial in Cady's sense. It's saying, this error has no authority over me. I am wiping it off the board of my mind.
I really like that image. So denial means declaring the power of the problem is not true. It's looking at the bugaboo under the bed and saying, I see you, but you're not real. You don't get to run my life.
Exactly. You're withdrawing your mental consent. You're saying, I see this condition, but I deny that it has the power to control my destiny. It creates a mental clearing.
Okay, let's ground this, because this can get a little abstract. Let's talk about 3 modern examples of how this bondage shows up and how we can flip it to liberty. Let's start with work.
Okay.
I think a lot of people feel like their boss is a literal taskmaster from Egypt.
This is a classic Egypt scenario. You feel stuck. You think, my boss holds my entire future in their hands.
Yeah.
If they fire me, I'm ruined. I can't pay my bills.
That's the bondage view.
That's the bondage view. You have assigned all your power, all your safety to an external person.
And that creates so much anxiety. You're constantly walking on eggshells.
So the liberty view applies Cady's principle that there is only one source and it is not your boss.
Yeah.
Cady would say your boss is just a channel.
The channel, not the source. That's a huge distinction.
It's everything. If you close one channel, the water, your supply, your career, your income just flows through another one.
So the job is the channel, but my own capability, my value, that's the source.
Right. So you stop acting like a slave. Stop running to and fro, which is one of her big phrases.
Stop the frantic energy.
Stop frantically sending out resumes out of pure fear. Stop trying to manipulate the external situation. Instead, you shift your inner identity. You affirm, I am a person of value. My abundance comes from my own inner resources, not this one specific job.
And that changes your energy completely. You walk into the office differently when you don't believe your boss owns you.
Completely. And, ironically, it makes you better at your job.
Yeah.
You're more creative. You're more confident because you're not operating from this place of desperate survival.
You move from defense to offense.
I'm a good way.
You move from a defensive posture to an expansive one. Yes.
Okay, example 2. Relationships. This is a big one. People-pleasing.
Oh, massive. The bondage view here is I need them to like me to feel worthy.
Yeah.
You are enslaved to their opinion. Cady calls this bondage to personality.
Yeah.
You're twisting yourself into knots to get validation from another person's personality, which, by the way, is fickle. It changes all the time.
So what's the liberty view? It's standing in your own individuality. Cady makes this great distinction between personality, the masks we wear, the roles we play, and individuality, which is your core authentic self, the real you.
The part that can't be shaken.
Exactly. The liberty view is knowing you exist and have value independently of anyone else's opinion. The bugaboo here is the fear of rejection.
We think if they reject me, I'll die, which probably comes from our old tribal brains.
It does. You're terrified of a monster called "they won't like me." But if you turn on the light of liberty, you realize their opinion is just a thought in their head. It has no actual power over your reality unless you grant it that power.
You deny the power of their judgment over your self-worth.
You do. It's incredibly empowering.
Okay, third example, habits. We've all tried to quit something, sugar, smoking, scrolling on our phones, and failed over and over. Why does Cady think we fail?
This is where she aligns perfectly with modern writers like James Clear, author of Atomic Habits. The bondage view is focusing on the behavior. It's saying, I am a smoker who is trying to quit.
You're identifying with the old habit. You're dragging that old identity around with you.
And Cady has that wonderful poetic biblical phrase for this.
New wine into old wineskins.
You cannot put new wine into old wineskins. You can't build a new life in an old identity. In those times, old wineskins were brittle. You put new fermenting wine into them, and the pressure would just
Burst them.
It would burst the skin. If your identity, your wineskin, is I am a disorganized person, you can try to organize your desk every day, but it's not going to stick. The old wineskin will burst. You'll revert to the mess.
So the liberty view is to change the identity first.
Yes, I'm an organized person. I am a healthy person. You have to change the inner to change the outer. You dissolve the old identity, that's the denial part, wiping the slate clean, and then you affirm the new one.
It's just amazing how these ideas from the 1890s are basically the cutting edge of behavioral psychology today.
Truth is truth. It just gets new language.
Yeah.
Whether you call it cognitive reframing or metaphysical denial, the mechanism is the same.
Okay, so we have the theory. We know we're stuck in Egypt. We know we're believing in bugaboos. How do we actually get out? Let's talk about the practical roadmap. We're calling it the Liberty Reset.
And this is something you can do right now. It's really just 3 steps.
Okay, step first.
Name the belief. You have to catch the bugaboo. Shine the flashlight under the bed. So you ask yourself, what external thing do I believe controls my happiness right now?
And be honest.
Be really honest. Is it your bank balance? Is it your partner's mood? Is it the number on the scale? Where have you given away your power?
That takes some radical honesty. It's so much easier to say, I'm just stressed, than to admit, I believe my happiness depends on my ex texting me back.
Right. But naming it, it breaks the spell. It stops being this vague cloud of doom and becomes a specific false belief you can actually work with.
Okay, so you've named it. Step next.
Replace the inner agreement. This is where you use denial and affirmation. You've named the belief, now you mentally wipe it off the chalkboard. You literally say to yourself, this external condition has no power over me.
Fair.
Or, I deny that this text message has the power to control my peace. And then you immediately follow it with an affirmation. You can't leave a vacuum.
Right.
You say, the power is within my own mind and spirit. You reclaim your authority. You remind yourself that you are the source of your own stability.
And step finally.
Choose one liberty action. This is crucial. You have to act like the free person you are claiming to be.
So you ask.
You ask yourself, what would a free person do right now? A scared person might frantically call their ex 10 times. A free person might go for a walk, work on a project, or just give themselves permission to rest.
So you don't wait for the fear to go away. You act as if you're already free.
That's how you build the new evidence for your brain. You are proving to yourself through action that the bugaboo isn't real.
Now, I know what happens when people try this. They get all fired up, they do the Liberty Reset for a day, and then they crash. Or it seems to get harder.
It happens all the time. Cady actually lays out the common pitfalls. We can think of this as a troubleshooting guide.
Let's run through them. Mistake 1. Battle fatigue.
This is when you try to fight the negative thoughts. You're wrestling the bugaboo. You're arguing with yourself in your head all day. Cady's advice is simple. Be still.
It's not a wrestling match.
It's a turning away. Think of it like a radio. If you don't like the song that's playing, say it's heavy metal fear, you don't yell at the radio. You don't try to smash it.
You just change the station.
You just change the frequency to classical liberty.
Yeah.
Battle fatigue comes from arguing with the fear. Just drop it. Turn your attention to the liberty view.
That's a relief to hear. Mistake 2. Looking for loaves and fishes.
Right. This comes from the story where the crowd started following Jesus just to get the free lunch. Cady says we do this with mental work. We do the affirmations just to get the money or just to fix our health.
But isn't that the point? To get the result? If I'm doing this to find a job, I want the job.
And that's the paradox. If you chase the result, you stay in bondage to the result. You're still saying, I need that external thing to be okay.
You're still in Egypt.
You're still in Egypt. Cady says, seek the kingdom, the inner state of peace and confidence first. When you genuinely feel abundant inside, the outer results, the loaves and fishes, they follow naturally.
Okay, that leads right into mistake 3, running to and fro.
This is that frantic human effort. You affirm, I am prosperous, and then 10 minutes later, you're panic scrolling job boards. That's running to and fro.
It signals to your brain that you don't actually believe what you just said.
It's a lack of trust. It's the difference between swimming and thrashing. Thrashing makes you sink. Swimming requires a rhythm and a trust that the water will hold you up.
Now, mistake 4 is my favorite concept in the whole lesson. Chemicalization.
Yes, chemicalization. It's an old chemistry term. Think about what happens when you pour baking soda into vinegar.
It fizzes up, it bubbles over, it looks like a complete mess.
Exactly. But that fizzing isn't something going wrong. It's the reaction taking place. It's the transformation. Cady says when you start introducing high-voltage truth into a mind that has been stuck in fear for years, there is going to be a reaction.
Things might seem to get worse for a bit.
You might feel more anxious. Your situation might look more chaotic. And most people stop there. They think, oh no, this positive thinking stuff is making it worse.
And they run right back to Egypt because at least it's familiar.
But Cady says, stand firm. It's just the error breaking up. It's like cleaning a wound with alcohol. It stings before it heals. That turmoil means it's working.
That is so reassuring. So if you start this and feel a little crazy for a day or two, that can actually be a good sign.
It's the sediment being stirred up so it can be washed away. Let it fizz.
And finally, mistake 5, thinking, I am not enough.
This brings it all back home. We feel like we're too weak for this. I can't control my mind. Cady reminds us that the I within you, your true self, your individuality, is the master.
You are not the servant of your mind. You are the master of it.
You are not your passing thoughts. You are the thinker, not the thought.
That's the anchor.
It's the ultimate liberty. You're the sky. The thoughts are just the weather passing through.
Wow. This has been so clarifying. It's amazing to think this was written over 120 years ago. It feels like she's speaking right to us.
It's timeless because the human mind hasn't really changed. We still get scared of bugaboos. We still look for freedom in all the wrong places.
So let's recap. We've covered a lot of ground here. If we had to boil this down to the essentials, what are the key takeaways?
I'd say there are 7 core ideas. First, just realize that bondage is a mental state, not just a physical one. It starts in your mind.
Right.
Second, that we suffer because we believe external things have power over us. That's the root of it all. Third, to understand that these beliefs are often bugaboos.
Yeah.
They're scary, but they're powerless, like a fake telegram.
The monster under the bed.
Fourth, to find liberty, we have to stop agreeing with the fear. That's the act of denial. Fifth, we have to identify the old wineskins, our past identity, and build a new self-image before our habits can really change.
Change the inner to change the outer.
Sixth, remember that true power comes from stillness, not from that frantic struggle, that running to and fro.
And finally,
that freedom is reclaiming your power to choose your thoughts.
it sounds so simple, but it's a lifetime of practice.
It is. It's a discipline, but the reward is liberty.
So we've cleared the slate. We've talked about wiping away all these false beliefs, but that kind of leaves a blank space. What do we put in its place?
And that is the perfect question. Once you stop being the victim, who are you? And that is exactly what Cady tackles in her next lesson. She calls it the statement of being.
It's about defining your true identity.
Not just I am not sick, but I am.
Mm.
Well, we'll get into what you actually are.
God is, man exists. That's the teaser for the next one. It's about understanding your true wiring so you can turn the lights on full blast.
It is. Today was demolition. Next time, we pour the foundation.
I want to leave everyone with one final thought. We talked about the bugaboo under the bed. Is there something in your life right now? A conversation you're avoiding, a decision you're putting off that you've turned into a monster?
Mm-hmm.
What if you just looked under the bed? What if you considered, just for a moment, that maybe there's nothing there at all?
Fear grows in the dark.
Yeah.
Light dissolves it.
Thanks for being here. If you want the full series, check the playlist, and please like and subscribe so you don't miss the next episode.